Let's find out. Gemma Dale is joining us. She's from NAB Trade. Hey, Gemma. Nice to see you. What do you say? Was this a big week? I know last week everybody was a bit reticent to get in and get their hands dirty. Did anything change?
No, not really. No,
Okay.
Frankly, it's quite quiet. Although what's super interesting about it is it's quiet, the relatively subdued volumes, but the average trade size is enormous at the moment. So really, really small number of people who are making their plays, but they've got some money. And so it's quite fascinating. Those guys, they're still playing this market. They know what they want to do in this environment. It's not the average punter anymore.
All right, so the whales are in.
Yeah.
What are they scooping up? That's the question.
Look, they're all over materials. It's all about materials at the moment. There was a bit of weakness earlier in the week and we just saw insane volumes. BHP at this kind of price, or a couple of days ago kind of price anyway, they just absolutely love it. It's like a 94% buy, which was something like BHP that everybody's got a bit of. To be frank, I'm sure we have some people who don't, but it's very widely held and very large holdings. To see a 94% buy, it has to have been beaten up quite a lot. A lot of these guys are buying it at $36 less than a year ago, right? So it's not like it's been beaten up that much, but they are all over it. Fortescue's back in again, which is interesting. So it was big passion buy also, very, very, very enthusiastic. And Rio, I find Rio super interesting, right? Rio's always sort of in the numbers. It's a long way down now, like it's sort of number 15, number 20. It's not that popular relative to the other two. All over it this week too.
I think it's interesting because we had a couple of big broker notes released as well on the commodity space saying that there's likely more downside to come in the metals prices and also for the share prices of these big, the big miners. But clearly NAB Trader's not, like, I'm not going to wait for full capitulation, let's get in now. And big trade sizes for these ones as well?
Absolutely huge. Fortescue was over $100,000 average trade size, which for a retail trading platform is quite a lot. For an average, it may have been sort of skewed by a few people at the top end, but it's massive, right? The average person doesn't have $100,000 to throw at one thing. So yeah, huge.
Okay, and I know last week, actually I feel like forever, we've been talking about Westpac being the buy on any weakness. Was that so this week?
It's weird with the banks. I think what we're seeing in the banks now is everyone's like, I've got so much. I have so much in financials now. I bought them during COVID. I bought them over the last few months. They've been fantastic for me long term. To be honest, some of the share prices have not done anything particularly interesting, but the dividends are great, and that's kind of what I'm in there for. So most of our guys are buying them for the dividend. At the moment, I think what we're seeing is it's not cheap enough to buy, and it's not expensive enough to sell. I'm just going to watch it unless I'm sort of really making material portfolio changes. Except NAB, someone was selling a ton of NAB above $28, and it was over $28. That was where they were getting out of it. It's quite interesting.
Sitting on the offer. All right, let's go and talk international because we're seeing quite a big rebound, particularly in US shares, tech areas at the moment. Are we seeing much activity when it comes to single stock names, or are they trying to go and diversify?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So international's always been a buy, like just consistently buying, and it was Tesla, Daylight and everything else. But it was all the big names as well. It was Apple, it was Amazon, it was a bit of that kind of stuff. And so we saw this consistent buying for all this time. We've really started to see more mixed trading. So we're seeing trimming, we're seeing wholesale selling, seeing people shift their portfolios around. And the one quite extraordinary thing is we're starting to see a lot of buying of ETFs in the US. They're not necessarily ETFs you can't get in Australia. So the fact that they're buying them there I find quite fascinating. But there's diversification in international equities or international assets, not necessarily just equities. There was a US gold ETF in there.
Really?
Yeah, quite. And you're like, you can buy gold in any currency if you wish, but it's gold. It's still the same commodity. They're buying them all over the place now. It's quite interesting.
Okay, so when we think about lithium players, how are they traveling? Because I've had so many conversations this week, and I think the rubber is really hitting the road now, and people are recognizing that there will be winners and there will be those that don't do anything as we continue to push toward the adoption widespread of EVs. So was there any sort of move that was significant in any other direction there?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one because it was the specky play of the first half, right? People loved it. I mean, they were playing in lithium last year and prior as well, but really the first half of this year, that's where we saw massive excitement and huge trading volumes in that sector. It was kind of banks, materials and lithium, that was it. Now we're starting to see sort of something of a shift. Linus is back in, which is interesting. We haven't seen that for ages. It's kind of popped back into the numbers. And then they do change fairly frequently. Pilbara Minerals is probably the big name that continuously comes back in. But it's not quite as hot as it used to be. Not quite as hot.
So lukewarm, tepid,
It's
tepid enthusiasm rather than red hot.
Maybe
Understood.
they've just got a heap of that too, like the banks. They've got so much, what am I going to do with it?
Fair enough. Gemma Dale, thanks so much for joining us on the program. Always fantastic. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks,
Great
Gemma.
to see you guys.